the thing that's been annoying me is this misconception, actually, just this lie that Eric Dyer plays instead of him, he can't get a game, he's just injury prone. What a load of rubbish. Like, if you're going to try and criticise some of our signings, at least get your facts right.
I think he's worth every penny, and I think he's a player that if United are going to have any kind of success this season, he is going to be right at the centre of it.
I'm expecting a big impact. I mean, if someone's getting it, hasn't he been likened as Zlatan Ibrahimovic? I will take that with both hands.
How excited are you to see your first defeat of the season?
Oh, that is such a low blow. You guys have a little sort of like draw at Old at Wembley, lose on a penalty shootout, and all of a sudden you think you're getting top four. It's so cute.
Hello and welcome to Inside Devils, the brand new talkSPORT show dedicated to all things Manchester United. I'll be your host, Flex, and each week I'm going to be joined by a panel of experts to delve into the latest coming out of Old Trafford. We've got a lot to get through this week, including looking into this summer's transfer activity. So I'm delighted to say we've managed to prize talkSPORT's transfer guru. He's not going to mind me calling him that. And he's also a huge Manchester United fan, Mr. Alex Crook. We've got him away from his phone to join us. Alex, welcome to the show.
Pleased to be here. Not quite away from my phone. It's
Actually,
on the desk.
That's
just
a lie.
in case.
Yeah, it's there. But to be fair, we need deals. So we've got a lot to talk about. And also joining us is talkSPORT presenter and lifelong Manchester United fan, Angelina Kelly. Angelina, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Look at this, Manchester United. We're going to be talking about that inside out. That's exactly what we want to do and get into everything coming out of Old Trafford from ourselves, the fans, and you guys as well, watching as well. Right, first things first. Let's take a look at the business done at the club over the summer. We've got 4 signings through the door so far. This summer in the form of Yoro, Joshua Zirkzee, Nazir Mazraoui, and the latest in terms of Matthijs de Ligt. Lack of Premier League experience, though, Crookie. Does that worry you?
I can understand why people would use that as a stick to beat the signings with. I can also understand why some people might suggest that they've got Erik ten Hag's fingerprints over them once again. You've got Dutchmen, you've got players who've played under Ten Hag. In fact, someone suggested to me a few days ago that he's just basically trying to put back together the Ajax team that got to the semi-finals. I don't think it is as simplistic as that. I think the new hierarchy, the likes of Jason Wilcox and Dan Ashworth had a big say on recruitment. And what impresses me is the prices. You look at de Ligt in particular, I think for the money that United have paid, that's just not a deal that gets done under the previous regime.
Let's be honest, for a player of his calibre and his experience, that's a snip.
And you look at the clubs he's played for, you look at the fact he's gone deep into European competition, you look at the reaction actually of Bayern Munich fans. A lot of people are suggesting over in Germany that Bayern have basically sold their best defender. So I'm pretty optimistic about that transfer, I have to say.
Yeah. Angelina, you think the same?
Yeah, definitely. I think, touching on the price is a massive thing because normally Man United, it would end up being an £80 million deal or something like that. So, yeah, no, really happy to see him. I understand why some people are a little bit sceptical, but at the end of the day, he's still, like you say, has played for some very big clubs, been a part of some very big competitions. And has his form dipped at times? Yes, but I think overall, he's still recognised as a good defender in Europe.
100%. We're going to get onto some of the other signings, but I have to say, on Matthijs de Ligt, the thing that's been annoying me is this misconception, actually, just this lie that Eric Dyer plays instead of him, he can't get a game, he's just injury prone. What a load of rubbish. Like, if you're going to try and criticise some of our signings, at least get your facts right. Since Eric Dyer has gone to Manchester United, he's pretty much played almost every single game alongside Matthijs de Ligt. As soon as there was an injury, fair enough, he had to step out, but he was still used an awful lot. And I just think we have to debunk these myths that people are trying to attack Manchester United fans or the club to say, oh, you're signing a player who's an outcast at Bayern Munich who just doesn't play. And that's just not true. So that's my bugbear out there. I just had to get that out there. In terms of Joshua Zirkzee, what type of impact are you expecting from him, Angelina? Because it's tough. It's tough coming to a new league. He's young. He's coming from Italy, from Bologna. a lot of expectation to help Rasmus Højlund as well. But we saw Rasmus Højlund struggle last year at times, but still ended up our top goal scorer. What sort of impact are you expecting from Xerxes?
I'm expecting a big impact. I mean, if someone's hasn't he been likened to Zlatan Ibrahimovic? I will take that with both hands. I mean, obviously, you've got not a signing, but in my head, he's, a backroom signing of Ruud van Nistelrooy. You're expecting somebody like that to really take Xerxes and Højlund under his wing. I like the idea that there's going to be a bit of competition maybe between Højlund and Xerxes. I'm not mad at that. I think that competition sometimes can be really good. But no, I've got big expectations. Am I expecting him to, start the first season and score, 30 goals or something? No, but I think if he can get between 10 and 15 goals this season, I think that would be absolutely brilliant. And yeah, this is somebody, though, even though he is quite young, he's still played for some good teams. He's got some good experience under his belt. So, yeah, I'm hoping that he's going to be able to hit the ground running. I know it's easier said than done. I know that with Højlund we saw, there were some teething issues. But I think looking at Manchester United now, the people in the back room, the powers that be that are there, that there will be, enough support for him. And like I say, I think that competition with Rasmus Højlund could actually be very beneficial.
Yeah, because that's the thing, isn't it, Crookies? Options for Manchester United. We saw last year with Rasmus that he was asked to just do it all yourself. 18-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid, come in, put Manchester United on his shoulders. No help from Martial, was missing all year. No other striker to help him. But now he has that competition and help.
Yeah, Marcus Rashford basically checked out for the season as well. So there was a lot of pressure on Højlund. He's ended up with 16 goals in all competitions in a team that didn't necessarily create him too many opportunities. He had to do a lot of that work himself. So, yeah, I think it looks a lot deeper now in terms of the options in attack. Martial should have left the football club a long time ago. We'll probably come on to that. But I think also what impressed me about Xerxes is that versatility. He's not just a number 9. In fact, he's probably not an old school number 9. He can play in the 10. He can play out wide if he has to as well. And I think in the modern game, you need that fluidity in your forwards. And watching his first interview as well, it was pretty clear how excited he was about becoming a Manchester United player and that link up with Ruud van Nistelrooy that Angelina's alluded to. So I'm expecting big things of him.
You did touch on some of the outgoings. You said that Martial had left the club a while ago. But in terms of actual outgoings, Aaron Wan-Bissaka has left the club. We've seen the sale of Mason Greenwood, Willy Cambuala, Alvaro Fernandes, Mari Forson, Rafael Varane, Martial, Brandon Williams, Sofian Amrabat. Obviously, that was a loan. We haven't picked that up. There are still others that their futures are up in the air. You're looking at Scott McTominay, Jadon Sancho. What's going to happen there? We know the situation with Manchester United in terms of needing to sell to be able to bring in the next batch. But there's a fair few players that have left. Not all first teamers, but in terms of trimming the squad. Is that Erik ten Hag sort of wiping the slate clean for the new season to try and reshape this team?
Partly, but I think it's necessity as well, because obviously a lot of clubs now in the Premier League are very worried and very aware of the PSR restrictions, and United, for all the wealth, for all the global support they have, they're not immune to that. But I think that's impressed me with Ineos, because not only have United been bad buyers for the past 10 years, they've been bad sellers as well. But you look at the money they got for Cambuala, who clearly wasn't going to be part of Erik ten Hag's first team plans. Even Mason Greenwood, this is a player who everybody in Europe knew was available, because Manchester United simply couldn't reintegrate him into the first team. They've still got decent money for him, and they've got a very significant sell-on clause if, as expected, he goes over to France under Roberto De Zerbi and prospers. So that was a good piece of business as well. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, slightly sad to see him go. I think when it comes to a one-on-one defender, when you're up against superior opponents, as we saw in the FA Cup final at Wembley against Manchester City, I think he can do a job. Having said that, in terms of United wanting to become a more possession-based team, to dominate games, probably Dalot is the better option. So, yeah, so far so good on that front as well.
Angelina, are you surprised that maybe some of the players who are still here?
Yeah, I mean, the way that last season ended, I'm surprised that Casemiro is still there. I know that, like we were speaking earlier, that he was looking a lot sharper in the Community Shield than I expected.
He looked a lot fitter.
He looked a lot fitter, which is what we need. I think Scott McTominay, I would prefer to see him stay at Manchester United. But again, the amount of discussions that have been going on, I am surprised. A controversial one that, again, we were discussing, Luke Shaw. I understand why Man United are going to keep hold of him, but I think for me personally, he falls into that Anthony Martial bracket of somebody who has been there too long. You've got to learn how to cut the cord at times. And as much as on his day he's brilliant, you know, how many more seasons can we keep waiting and hoping? Is he going to stay fit? Is he going to have a great season? It's just getting to the point now where you've got him and you've got Tyrell Malacia, who are both an absolute train wreck when it comes to these injuries. Yeah. How much longer are we going to kind of do this dance? So I'm sure some fans will say, well, no, I'm not surprised because, you know, he went to the Euros, he's Luke Shaw. But for me, in my head, with the way that Ineos are moving and some of the players that we've seen leave, I'm surprised that he's one that's still there.
I'm with you on that. How we talk about Phil Jones, Anthony Martial in their stints at Manchester United. Luke Shaw's right up there in terms of the amount of games he's missed. Yes, when he's fit, solid, robust, good brain, understands the game. But he's just not available. We've got rid of Varane for the same sort of reasons. When he's fit, absolutely fine, but can't rely on him.
No, and Varane's injured again.
Yeah, 20 minutes in. Exactly.
Ironic.
So some of us saw that coming. I was looking at Luke Shaw's stats actually a couple of days ago when the news came out that he would miss the start of the season. He's been there a decade.
Yeah.
He's played 191 Premier League games, so just over 19 a season on average. That isn't enough when you look at the wages that he's earning. And I think we're now in a situation with Luke Shaw where it's a pleasant surprise if he's fit,
exactly,
as opposed to an expectation. So I can understand why United are looking at left-back options. It isn't a priority. I think the central midfield is somewhere they're looking to improve before that. But if they can get a Marcus Alonso or a Ben Chilwell, some Premier League experience for a relatively modest fee in the case of Chilwell, Alonso on a free transfer, I think that will be quite sensible business. It's going to be easier said than done to shift Luke Shaw, by the way, because he is on significant money and we've seen his injury record. Anybody going to buy him just needs to do a Wikipedia like I did and they'll see
There's no way we can hide that injury record from people.
So
they're going to be able to see it.
It's frustrating because I was at the Euros, I was behind the goal with the England fans. I thought for an hour Luke Shaw was probably England's best player in that final against Spain.
He plays well when he plays.
And now all of a sudden he's unavailable agagen.
That was staggering to me. Well, actually, it wasn't staggering to me, though, because I was thinking he's done his pre-season essentially with England to get fit. So he's have a few weeks off that he, you know, contractually has to be given by the club because he's gone to the last stages of the Euros. So he should be ready and firing to go.
It's a frustration because it just, as with England, it upsets the whole balance of the back four. I thought Lisandro Martinez did okay as a left-back against City, but obviously he doesn't give you the options going forward that Luke Shaw would.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of somebody who absolutely is staying at Manchester United and is a staple in the side, the captain, Bruno Fernandes, he's signed a new contract. Big smiles from Angelina there until 2027. How massive is this? Is it the right choice as well? Is that the right decision?
100%, I think it's the right decision. I know that a lot of other fans talk about Bruno Fernandes and people love to go for, the dramatics, the way he throws himself on the floor, blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, but do we watch football nowadays? Like, how many players, especially in the Premier League, let alone the rest of Europe, do the dramatics and throw their arms up in the air? And for me, he is just one of those players that really does kind of encapsulate this whole what it means to play for Man United. That guy is dedicated. You can see the passion. I personally interpret some of the throwing his arms about I'm not happy with, but I think some of it I do actually interpret as he is really passionate and he really wants to see this team do well. I think he really believes in Man United as a football club. I think that, I mean, I don't know him personally, so I'm hoping this is true, but the way that he comes across, I think he really gets the assignment. He understands what it is to play for Man United, and that, for me, is something we've been lacking from so many players. I know people debate him as a captain. I'm happy to have him as our captain, and I think that this is a deal that really needed to be locked in, because as much as some people have questioned him at times, you know, if he has a really strong season this season, which I'm expecting, you know, you don't want the whispers, you don't want the discussions. The end of last season, I hated the way that people were talking about it and what's going to happen with Bruno. I want to kind of eradicate all that noise as much as possible. So to lock him in, for me, I'm really happy about it.
Crookie, like Angelina says, sometimes Bruno can divide opinion, actually. You know, there's a player who's been here for a little while now, had a big impact on the side, in a Manchester United side that's been nowhere near where we want it to be as United fans. But for you, is that the right decision to tie him down to a long-term contract?
Yeah, I think it was an absolute no-brainer. Obviously, football now, recruitment, the way you set a team up is very data-led. I think if you crunch Bruno Fernandes, his numbers in terms of goal involvements, goals scored, goal assists, chances created, he's right up there with the best in the Premier League. I think sometimes the frustration that we see, the arm throwing that gets pinpointed when people question his credentials as a captain, is actually frustration that there's some of the players around him are not on the same wavelength. And I think if you put Bruno Fernandes in a Fergie team, for example, and I don't want this to be a podcast where we hark back to the glory days, but he would be a really good player. Technically, I think he's the best player on the books. I think if opposition fans don't like him, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, same.
I think that's probably a badge of honour in some cases. So it was absolutely the right decision. I'm not sure that Bayern Munich and Barcelona were showing that much interest anyway. I think his camp have probably played quite a clever game there in order to get him this new deal. But I think he's worth every penny. And I think he's a player that if United are going to have any kind of success this season, he is going to be right at the centre of it.
I also look at it with Bruno's situation, and I think from his position, when we started seeing rumours that Bayern were interested, and I looked at that and I went, he wants a new deal here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because I think Bruno's probably looked around the place and said, hang on a minute, right, so Varane's just left, he was hardly available, more money than me. I'm looking at the likes of Marcus Rashford, poster boy, not delivering or fairly inconsistent, more money than me. I'm looking at Casemiro, he's got 3 years left on his deal. He's the top earner. I'm looking at Jadon Sancho. I'm looking at Martial. I'm looking at Mason Mount, he's just come in, and he's going, hang on a minute, I'm the captain. I'm the one who's consistent.
His worth.
Absolutely. And Bruno is completely professional. He's not a player who's going to doubt. We know he's not a player who's going to down tools or not try or throw his toys out the pram. And he's probably looked around the place and said, no, I should be among the top earners, if not the. And I think he's gone to his agent, and this is just my personal opinion,
you're right,
and gone, right, sort that out. Because actually, when you look at his contract, he had 2 years left as it stands before this, with an option. So it isn't really, in terms of contractual and how many years were left, it wasn't something that they had to do in that second, like he's got a year left, what are we going to do? But I think it's more of, right, what's the alignment of vision here as well? And actually, for a player who's now 30 and looking at his career, where he could go, to somewhere in Europe where they're in the Champions League every year, competing for leagues every year, and he's chosen, no, I want to stay here, but it has to make sense. Show me that you value me. And actually, I think it's come to a good point. Look, there's 4 new faces as well through the door at Old Trafford, but with 2 weeks left before deadline day, we want to look at what we still need to get over the line. Alex, how are you seeing this? What are some potential other incomers we could see?
Well, I think the centre of the park is the area that they're working on. But I was told yesterday by sources close to the club that in order to sign a midfielder permanently, they would have to ship some more players out because, as I mentioned, because they've been such bad sellers and because they've paid overinflated transfer fees over the past decade or so. When it comes to PSR, United are treading a very fine line. I think Casemiro's performance in the Community Shield was a little bit of a bonus, actually, because make no bones about it, they spent all summer trying to ship him off to Saudi Arabia. The Saudi money just isn't there like it was a year ago, so they're going to have to find a role for him. And if he can keep playing like he did at the weekend, I'm all in favour of that, by the way, because that was more the Casemiro from the first
we can
season.
have him, as long as he's playing like he was on Saturday.
But you remember his first season. I mean, he was probably player of the year. Yeah. So maybe last season was a bit of an anomaly. Having said that, if Saudi put money on the table, I'm sure they'd still take it
straight away.
Scott McTominay's an interesting one because I think he's a player that Erik ten Hag respects highly. I think if you go back to last season, when United were probably a team who played in moments as opposed to any kind of consistency, he was at the centre of a lot of those moments. He scored some really important goals. Out of possession, I'm not convinced that he's necessarily going to take United where they want to go. So if they get a decent offer, I think he'd be available. I don't see them letting him go on loan to Napoli. That doesn't really serve any great purpose. And I ran a piece on the talkSPORT website this week about Harry Maguire, saying that he's committed to staying at the football club. He's got a year left on his contract. So there's going to be a decision to make there for United. Do they let an £80 million player, as he was at the time, run his contract down and go for nothing? Or do they activate some kind of extension to protect his value? So still deals to be done. Agate is a target, but I'm told that's being led very much on the players' side at this moment in time. They won't pay the type of money that PSG want. Then there's talk of Sander Berge. I'm not excited at all about that transfer. There's even been a suggestion that maybe Sofiane Amrabat, they could pull the emergency call on him.
That would be typical, though, of us, wouldn't it, really?
Very on brand.
We can't rob Peter to pay Paul, and then it's like, actually, Sofiane, we did have you up on the website, actually. We've now taken him down.
Yesterday, I think.
Yeah, just taking him down today. Actually, want to come back in, low-cost loan or a low-cost purchase? I mean, Angelina, it's really difficult, isn't it? Because actually, you're looking at the moves that Manchester United have made in the past, and they struggle to sell players on. Harry Maguire was close to going to West Ham, I believe, last year. Said, no, I'm all right, mate. You're not going to pay me off, I'm not leaving. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, what some of the snags in that deal, what was holding up is, where's my payout?
I think they gave him $5 million to go.
Do you know what I mean? And it's almost like Ineos are going to have to really work through this and deal with some of the sins of the past, aren't they, really, in terms of moving players on. But us as fans have to understand that, no, we're not going to be able to command big fees for player X or player Y. That's how it's going to be.
Yeah, exactly. It is frustrating, but I think this is the result of, quite a bit of damage of however many years of the way that Man United have been doing business. I think, the same thing, the whole Maguire thing for me is a little bit frustrating. I would prefer, again, to just kind of try and cut that cord. But, if he's sat there being like, I'm good, thank you, you almost can't blame him because he's, sitting pretty cushy. But, yeah, it is frustrating. A midfielder is an absolute must for Manchester United. And especially when you look at, Casemiro was great on Saturday, but you can't, bet everything on him. You can't put everything on Casemiro. So I think that the midfield is massive. I'm glad that defensively we've got the players that we've got. But yeah, it's still going to be, maybe a season or two, a transfer window or two, maybe a bit more where things aren't going to maybe go exactly according to plan because of the messes of before.
Do we think when everybody's up to speed in terms of the defence, obviously Lenny Yoro is going to miss the first few weeks of the season, De Ligt, will he play against Fulham? I think he might actually, but he's going to take a while to get fully match sharp. Is there a case if they can't solve that midfield problem, they can't get players off the books, they can't bring in reinforcements, to move Martinez into midfield and play him alongside Kobbie Mainoo, and then maybe have De Ligt and Lenny Yoro when he's fit as the first choice?
I mean, it's definitely a position.
Option, isn't
it? It's definitely a position that Martinez can play, and he did it at Ajax, and actually he came in as that. And then Ten Hag went, actually, he had to fill in at left back a couple of times through some injuries. Then he went decent there. Then he found his way in centre back. But I think Ten Hag's preference is to not do that, of course. I wanted to ask you actually about Toby Collier. You spoke about a lot of the reasons why Manchester United can't get rid of players, and for some reason or not, they won't be able to bring certain players in. We saw him in pre-season. Ten Hag's got a fantastic record actually at United for bringing through young players. I mean, look at what's happened with Kobbie Mainoo. Look at what's happened with Alejandro Garnacho. In the first season, I was there pre-season. We didn't see him feature because there was, reportedly some problems with attitude and lateness, and they thought, no, you're not quite ready yet. We need to sort that out. And now look at him. Toby Collier looks like a decent, player, and we saw what happened with Kobbie Mainoo in that Carabao Cup final when Ten Hag put his arm around him and said, listen, you wait here, mate. This will be you. There's a feeling that Collier might be the next up. Could we see that, Angelina? And what have you made of Toby Collier?
I've been really impressed. And again, I think having a manager, and this is what, people have criticisms of Erik Ten Hag. Some of them I'm completely on board with, but I think that is one thing that fans were crying out for. Where's our youth? Look at the class of 92. We're not getting players through like that anymore. And I think you've got to applaud him and take your hat off to him the way that he's bringing these players through. So I have got no fears that this will be, I'm not saying that it's going to be another Kobbie Mainoo story.
I don't think we're going to find another one of them for a while.
Very, very special, unique situation. But I've got every faith that this is going to be another situation where he will be nurtured correctly. He'll be playing in the right games. I trust Ten Hag with him. And from what I've seen, I've been really impressed. And I think that there's definitely space this season. We've got enough games to play. As much as the pressure's going to be on for the Premier League, there are enough games where he can definitely, get some minutes.
I think that was a big part of the thinking when the hierarchy sat down with Ten Hag, and obviously there was a lot of speculation. We know they met with other high-profile managers, but the fact that he did bring the young players through, the fact that Mainoo and Garnacho in particular seemed to have a really good bond with the manager. I think Ineos are well aware of the history that United have, that long run of academy products playing in the first team week in, week out. I think that was a big tick in the Ten Hag box. You've got Harry Maas as well, who played during pre-season. We're talking about the left-back position. Maybe long-term he could be the solution there. And secondly, I think part of the reason that they've got Jason Wilcox in there as technical director is because he's worked in the academy at Manchester City. And because of the way the Glazers have destroyed the football club over the last couple of decades, whereby United used to have their pick of the best young players in the area, suddenly Manchester City are in the box seat. Jason Wilcox is trying to wrestle back control of youth development. And actually, maybe even by the time this goes out, Manchester United will have appointed a loan manager, a former player, to ensure they get players going out on loan and therefore a pathway into the United first team to do what City have done, which is get really big money for some of their young players who haven't even got that much experience at City, but they've played for clubs elsewhere.
Incredible what they do.
And it's a great revenue
I saw
stream.
Liam Delap, we went for £20 million.
Bazunu, James Trafford both went for massive
£19 million.
fees.
You know, Manchester City are fantastic at doing that, and yeah, it might pain us to say it, but actually getting Omar Barada in there now as well, get some of the trade secrets. It makes sense. So you can clearly see what it is that Ineos are trying to do. Right, last Saturday saw the opening of the 24-25 campaign. Manchester United taking on Manchester City at Wembley. How did you see it? Because, you know, we did lose on penalties, 1-1 in regular time. Angelina, was it a good performance? Was it worrying? Did we learn anything new? Did we leave the game with the same questions we knew going in? How do you see it? And are we ready for the start of the season?
I was so annoyed by that game.
Same.
I was so frustrated. I think overall, big picture, I was really happy with the performance, and that's why I'm so annoyed about it, because I really think we could have won that game. There was a couple of chances that spring to mind. You know, City did have their chances as well, but there were a couple of moments. Yeah, there were a couple of moments that spring to mind that I was at times thinking, like, we could be about 3-1 up here, and it was a typical Man United thing of we've not taken our chances and we end up getting punished. Penalties, I think, you know, it's a very separate situation about penalties. I mean, my heart goes out to Johnny Evans.
Bless him. As soon as I saw him step in, I just thought, we've run out of penalty takers here, haven't we? Like, bless him. And he tried to put it in the top corner.
Yeah.
I think he tried to put it on the top of the stand.
I don't know what he was trying to do.
Maybe he was actually trying to go bottom-hand corner, but that's just what happened.
Yeah, it was... kind of that aside, because I really don't want to judge people on that, and someone like Johnny Evans, you know, a guy that came back to the club, probably expect him to fill in here and there. He ended up being a really key player for us.
Played more games than any other centre-halves last year.
Exactly.
Which is ridiculous in itself, by the way.
Yeah. So I've always got time for Johnny Evans.
Yes, absolutely.
But penalties aside, I was overall really impressed. I liked the shape that we had. I was so happy to see Amad Diallo have a good game and Alejandro Garnacho. I think all this talk about Anthony, Jadon Sancho, which I'm sure we'll get onto, but you know, I want those two players to kind of be looking over their shoulder and thinking, hang on a minute, these two kids, you know, do we need to be worrying about Jadon Sancho? Do we need to be worrying about Anthony? Obviously, you want your squad depth, but I'm looking at those two players as, you know what, guys, take it and run with it. I was so impressed. Really happy to see them have good performances. So, yeah, I mean, it wasn't City's strongest team, but they still had some of their big players in that game. So I was really happy of the account that we gave. I think a few people were nervous that, are United going to get battered? But I think, you know, our last two games at Wembley against Manchester City, you know, one of, if not the biggest side in Europe at the moment, that we've walked away from both of those games. The FA Cup final with our heads massively held high. But I think that game, you know, intact, I think that we didn't show ourselves up. I think we made a really good account of ourselves, better than City did, in my opinion. So overall, I was really happy, just so frustrating that it was a little bit of the United that we keep seeing, that you don't take your chances, you get punished and you can't, you know, finish a game and really kill it off.
It's a common theme. Did it, just quickly on Jadon Sancho, Crookie, did it say a lot that he came on ahead of Anthony? Yes, Joshua Zirkzee hasn't been with the squad sort of all the way through pre-season, so maybe you could understand that one a little bit more. But in terms of Anthony, I mean, he's fallen right down the pecking order, and could we see Jadon be ahead of him, and if he stays, or how do you see that situation?
Potentially. I think he's a player the hierarchy rate. So I think that's probably why Ten Hag was pressurised into patching up those differences.
It is so obvious.
Yeah. And like, you can't sell him if he's like, but training by himself as well. So Ineos probably won't tell you what you have to come back into the first team fold. Yeah,
because otherwise you're undervaluing an asset. I think credit to Sancho. Obviously, he missed a penalty for England in that final, didn't he? Of the last Euros back in 2021. He's put himself there to be shot at. It wasn't a terrible penalty. It wasn't Johnny Evans style by any stretch of the imagination, but he put himself up there. I think he feels he's come back with a point to prove. In terms of Anthony, he gave an interview actually to the written media, didn't he, during pre-season, and said you're going to see a a better version. You're going to see goals. You're going to see assists. I don't mind that. He's putting his money where his mouth is. So let's see if he can have a much better season. But in terms of the game, I agree with Angelina. I was very frustrated. They had so many opportunities to put it to bed. And as we saw so often last season, they weren't ruthless enough in front of goal, weren't good enough at the back to keep that clean sheet. And I do think if you look at the squad going into this game against Fulham, it's going to be another nail-biter, because I just don't think United and the current guys are capable of getting into a 2 or 3 goal lead and they're just seeing it out.
It's not
Rasmus Højlund injured. So I think we're going to have some tense matches early in the season. But there were lots of positives. They tried to play a lot more football. They were much less direct, I think, maybe because they didn't have a number 9 to aim at than they were last season. But I'm interested to see the team selection, and we'll come on to it for this Fulham game, because for me, I thought it was a little bit out of order that Amad Diallo was the player who got taken off, albeit Garnacho made a brilliant impact off the bench. Marcus Rashford, he was better, but I still think Amad deserved to stay on. And if you're asking me to pick my team for this weekend, my 2 wide players would be Amad and Garnacho, and therefore Rashford on the bench.
I agree.
Well, even on Garnacho, let's talk a little bit about him, because massive impact off the bench. It kind of felt to me like he went, everyone's saying Amad's had a good pre-season, and Rashford, don't you forget about me, mate. Don't you forget about me. But it was a really good performance. Put it on a plate for Rashford. He missed, left foot, hit the post, should have scored.
Great chance.
And scored a fantastic goal himself. Angelina, what sort of season are we expecting from Garnacho? And what should his role be? Crookie just alluded to it there. Left side instead of Marcus Rashford. I left Wembley with fans saying, keep Amad where he is, take Rashford out, make it be Garnacho who starts. Could you see Erik ten Hag doing that? And what sort of season are you expecting from Garnacho?
I'm expecting, similar to last season, but even better. I want to see more from him. I want to see more goals, and I think he's more than capable of it. He was so refreshing to watch last season for me personally, and he's just the type of player you get excited about. And how many times as United fans that sometimes you don't have that many players that really excite you and you think they could do something special, and he's that player for me. So I agree completely. I'm not going to sit here and bash Marcus Rashford or say anything. I think that we've got to let him prove himself this season. I think it's a very important season for him. But if how many games are you going to have where it's like, we need to give him some minutes. I know we're yet to play the first game of the Premier League season, but we've not got time to be messing about. We've not got time to be, let's just give him this game or give it. You'll have your opportunities to make your impact.
Is that your message to Ten Hag then as well? Because a lot of fans have said, there needs to be no favouritism. Of course, large parts last year with the misdemeanours with Rashford in terms of the Belfast situation, and there's been others, late to the bus at Wolves, etc., etc. But there has been sort of some suggestions from fans at times that, yes, Marcus is one of us, he's from the academy, he's the poster boy, we really want to do well, but if he's not playing well, if he's not running hard enough, form's one thing. Might not be scoring goals, but when we can see that, maybe, I remember Newcastle away, Crookie, didn't look like you're running hard enough, mate. But Angelina's talking about there in terms of Ten Hag's got to have the steel to say, you're not going to play. I'll happily play Garnacho.
Well, but you want to win games as well.
Yeah.
I think what we saw on Saturday actually was a player who was willing to track back and was willing to work for the team. But to be honest, that should be the bare minimum. And you've alluded to it there. He's living all our dreams. We're all United fans. We'd all love to have the opportunity to pull on that shirt at Old Trafford and to have the raw talent that he's got, because there's no question about it. Technically, he's a terrific player. The fact he often doesn't seem to put a shift in, he isn't playing with a smile on his face, I think because he's come through the academy, that makes it even harder to understand. In terms of favouritism, I think Erik ten Hag is acutely aware of the type of temperament that Marcus Rashford has, and that he has this tendency to have a real downer when things aren't going well, which is why he tries to keep him in the team, he tries to instill confidence in him, and he tries to show that he's got his backing. So it wouldn't surprise me, actually, if Amad is the one to miss out against Fulham and Marcus Rashford does start the game.
I think that with Erik ten Hag, he didn't want to take. He challenged quite a lot of places. He dealt with the Maguire situation, dealt with Ronaldo, etc., etc. And then I think that when that situation happened with Marcus Rashford,
it was a test.
He was like, it's one too many. If I tackle him and that doesn't go right, I lose him. Then it's Bruno as a senior figure, and that was probably at the detriment to Ten Hag. And he's like, I know I've got something out of him the season before, 30 goals. And I just think he was a little bit reluctant to really go in there. And now we're seeing the emergence of Amad. We're seeing that the fans are like, hang on a minute, this is the kid that we bought, just after COVID. And
for big money as well, by the way.
Big money.
He wasn't a few quid.
Exactly. And then he was young at the time, still young now, a teenager at the time. And now he looks ready, though. And I like that he offers something completely different to what Garnacho can offer, to what Rashford can offer, the way he keeps the ball, the decisions that he makes. So I think
a lovely temperament as well.
Really nice
lovely way about him. I
Yeah.
interviewed him before the FA Cup final.
What a nice coach.
Very humble, very aware of his background and what it means to play for Manchester United and to be, again, a poster boy for those young players that really are the fabric of the football club. As the same for Kobbie Mainoo as well. I think Mainoo's got a wonderful attitude, and long may that continue. I think it won't be too long until you see both of those players rewarded with new long-term contracts. And again, what Ineos have done well, very quickly, they've identified the hardcore of players they want to build the future around. Højlund, Garnacho, Mainoo, Ahmed. And at the moment, you've got to say, Rashford is in that contingent because they gave him such a big contract.
Yeah.
It's got to work.
They want him to work. It has to work. And also, they're not queuing up to sign him, despite the links with Paris Saint-Germain.
Yeah, the offers weren't
United
flying
haven't
in,
had a
were they?
single offer this summer for Marcus Rashford.
In terms of looking ahead to the season, Angelina, right?
Yep.
What should we be expecting from this team? What is realistic? What are the targets? Because as fans, of course, we want us to return to the top, but it's not realistic to win the league this year. But after finishing 8th with a negative goal difference with the signings we've made, but we did win the FA Cup. That's 2 trophies in 2 years for Erik ten Hag. What is the expectation this season?
I think realistically, top 6 would be good. But then when I look at some of the teams around us that I think we'll be competing with, that have got a few issues themselves. You look at a team like Chelsea. Do I think Liverpool's going to completely drop off? Not at all. But still, losing a manager like Jurgen Klopp and bringing somebody new in, that could go one of 2 ways. You look at Spurs and how, they can kind of drop off at times. I look at their squad. I'm not too sure how I feel about that. There's a couple of different, Aston Villa, can they keep it up? They're going to have European football as well. What are Newcastle going to be doing? I think apart from, City and Arsenal and maybe Liverpool to an extent, those are teams that are, well, let's take Liverpool out of it because of what I've just said. You look at City and Arsenal, you think they are locked in. You know what you're going to get from them.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about them. I think the rest of it is really all there to play for. So if I'm going to be optimistic, and I think I want to be optimistic, I look at the players that we've brought in, I look at what our players can do when they are on their A game, and I'm going into the season expecting them to be on their A game, then I really think that top 4 is doable.
Yeah. Crook, do you see it the same way? And in terms of cup competitions as well, look, we're in the Europa League this year. We know Ten Hag's obviously, and rightly so, going to take it seriously. Got to the latter stages before we were smashed by Sevilla. 3-0, I was out there for that. That was nice. But yeah, we've surely got to be looking at another trophy as well. And like Angelina says, top 4, why not?
I'm more optimistic than a lot of people. And I agree with Angelina. I think the top 4 is there. I think the top 3 probably is a shoe-in for Arsenal, who I think will win the league this year, Liverpool and Manchester City. But I think 4th place is up for grabs. It's going to be a shootout between United, Chelsea. I'm not convinced with Enzo Maresca that could turn very badly very quickly, in my opinion. Tottenham, I think, have invested in some good young talent, taking a chance on Dominic Solanke. We'll see how that works out. Aston Villa are going to be distracted by the Champions League like Newcastle.
Do you not see them doing
season.
what they did last year?
I think it'll be difficult. Again, because of PSR, they've lost Douglas Luiz, who I think is a massive miss for them in midfield. Newcastle haven't really strengthened. They've got Lloyd Kelly in, who's a good squad player, but again, much like Luke Shaw, missed a lot of games through injury. At the moment, they've not got the Gay deal over the line, so perhaps they're not as strong as they could be. So I think the top 4 is there. I expect, like you, to have a real go in Europe. I think you look at Ten Hag's European record before he came to United. He knows how to operate in the continental competitions, and I think we should be right there when it comes to Europa League. Obviously, our FA Cup record under Ten Hag is terrific, 2 finals in 2 years. So I think it's going to be a better season than a lot of non-Manchester United fans are expecting. But
and even some Man United fans.
Well, absolutely. But we all start the first day of the season optimistic, and come full time, our dreams could be shattered. But I think it's important, momentum-wise.
Yes.
They've got to start well, because I was at the Wolves game last season. Yes, we won the game.
It was
but
alarming.
It was such a poor performance, and really that was when the rots set in.
Yeah.
They didn't play well until the FA Cup final.
No, and that was
arguably.
indicative actually of the. I was on that pre-season with the lads through that in America, leading into that, and every game that went by, I went, we're not ready. The last game against Dortmund, before we actually had that game against, I went, this doesn't look great, and that continued. Varane who had to save us, wasn't it, that day? Okay, let's lock in the predictions then, Angelina. And Crookie, we've had our say with where we think we're going to finish. You guys watching at home as well, or wherever you're watching from, get in the comments below and let us know where you think Manchester United will finish this season. Angelina, we'll start with you. Where are we going to finish? Come on.
Going to finish 4th in the Premier League.
Yeah.
All competitions or just Premier League are we looking at?
Do you know what? Let's have the lot. Do you think we're going to get a couple of trophies? Will we retain the FA Cup?
I mean, on paper, we should be getting at least to a semi-final of a cup competition, I think. So yeah, I think it's so hard because I get so ahead of myself.
Commit.
You know what? I am going to say that we are going to finish 4th. And I think that we will get to a cup final. Which cup final, I can't say.
Carabao Cup then.
Yeah. But, you know, I think, like I say, on paper, we do well in cup competitions, so why can't we? And I think Ten Hag will have that in the back of his mind.
Yeah.
You know, 2 seasons, 2 trophies. 3 seasons, 3 trophies. He's going to be looking at his critics and saying, what have you got to say
And he's
now?
reminded us when he was under pressure, he said, well, if Man United get rid of me, I'm a winner. I'll just go win somewhere else.
Yeah.
I've won in the last 5 seasons, including Ajax.
I didn't mind that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has to be a bit
Got to
bullish.
back
The media are
yourself.
battering him
Yeah.
every week, so he's got to come out fighting.
Yeah, and I think we've seen an emboldened Ten Hag when you look at some of the comments he's made about the fact that he was nearly replaced as manager. I'm going to go 4th as well, and I'll go a little bit further than Angelina because she sat on the fence a bit there.
Sorry.
I think we can win the Europa League as well. There you go, 4th in the Europa League, and I think we'd all take that.
I like it. I'm gonna match you on that. 4th Europa League. I think that if I still see Liverpool as the 3rd best team in the league, even they haven't made any signings yet, but even as they are, they still are. But as United fans, mate, we got to look at that and go, tell you what, Klopp's gone. If they don't get off to a good start and they haven't had the window that it got, maybe 3rd isn't as wrapped up as we may think. Maybe we're giving Liverpool too much credit. And then I'm going to say, why not?
And
why can't we push a little bit higher?
September the 1st is a big day to start, isn't it?
Absolutely.
United Liverpool at Old Trafford.
Baptism of fire for Arne Slot.
And let's be honest, we had the sign over Liverpool last season, drew at their place, drew at home, and beat them in the FA Cup. Absolutely derailed Jurgen Klopp's farewell tour.
Unbelievable, and that's what we want to see. Now it's time to look ahead to the huge Premier League opener at Old Trafford against Fulham, and I'm delighted to say that we've been joined by talkSPORT reporter and huge Fulham fan, Harry Durham. Welcome to the show,
let's
Harry.
do this, mate. Let's do this. Come on,
You're chomping at the bit.
Oh, mate, we've got back-to-back wins at Old Trafford this
Look at
weekend. And you're Winston. I don't understand. Well, we're going to do this. We have to.
You reckon? Yeah.
Oh, 100%, baby. Let's get it out on the table now.
How
90
excited
minutes.
are you to see your first defeat of the season on Friday? Come on, talk to
God, that
us
is
about the
such
game. How
a
you
low
feeling?
blow. It's
Come on.
unbelievable.
Well, that's
Listen,
what. Come on.
Yeah.
You had a little.
You guys have a little sort of like draw at Old Trafford at Wembley, lose on a penalty shootout, and all of a sudden you think you're getting top 4. It's so cute. But listen, back-to-back wins, which is unheard of for Fulham at Old Trafford. Listen, let's go straight back to that.
24 defeats in a row.
Yeah,
before
24
last season.
defeats in a row. I think I mentioned to you earlier, it was Inamoto 2002, 3.
Was that Pizza Hut on front of the shirt?
Pizza Hut on front of the shirt. That might have been 0102. But you're saying that, first loss of the season, I was with Ange at Wembley for the Community Shield, and I tell you what, your pre-season was shaky. Pre-season was shaky, but I was impressed by what I saw. Listen, City controlled it for the first sort of like 25 minutes.
Yeah.
I thought United could have scored like 2 or 3, mate. 2 or 3. So going into this,
You'll take a point.
I'm feeling, I said back to back. I'm feeling a bit shaky, to be honest with you. Especially as you guys mentioned with Ahmad and Garnacho. I think they're absolutely unbelievable.
We'll get to the Man United side of things shortly, but in terms of Fulham's business and pre-season, how do you think they're shaping up squad-wise? Emile Smith-Rowe through the door. Need to find a long-term replacement for Paulinho. If you want Scott McTominay, cough up, put more bids in. We're open to offers. But how's Fulham squad looking going into this?
Listen, we've made some lovely little transfers. Emil Smith-Rowe coming in, and we've given him a lifeline pretty much. Club record transfer fee. He's looked good in pre-seasons, back-to-back goals in both games. He's looking sharp. He's looking ready. Last season, he had the opportunity to play for Mikel Arteta. He didn't have a handful of injuries. I think he was available to be selected for 33 games. He's ready to go. He knew he wasn't getting that time at Arsenal, so bang, let's go straight into the Fulham squad. He's making himself look dangerous. You mentioned Scott McTominay there. I want McTominay, I really do. Yeah. But he's not a Joao Paulinho replacement. No. He's not. He's more of that box-to-box midfielder, that Roman 8 that can just go about and make himself busy. I think he's a quality player.
What's he worth then? If Emil Smith-Rowe is worth 35 million when he's been inactive for a little while through injuries and lack of selection, Scott McTominay, over a couple of hundred appearances for Man United, played in big games. I'm trying to flog him here. He can crash the box, get your goals, wash your maximum bid.
What you got to remember is, though, Smith-Rowe comes with that English player tax, and someone watching this will be like, McTominay is English. He's Scottish. He's Scottish. So the Scottish
scoring
tax,
goals in the Euros campaign against Spain, mate.
Oh yeah, come on. The Scottish tax isn't a thing, so we have to notch it down about 10 million. What did we say earlier? I think we were talking about the region of 23 million that Fulham submitted, and you said
25 to 30.
I'd happily pay 25. Happily pay 25. We've been linked to Andre, who's become a big name over in Brazil. It's been like 3 transfer windows now that have been linked to him. Yeah. And I think them two coming in could be different gravy. Harrison Reed, even though he's had good games at Old Trafford over the last couple of years.
He was bossing the part last year.
Literally. When Mitrovic lost his head, he was one of the best players on the pitch, and I think he was playing right mid or something like that. But how it's shaping up now, we brought in a new centre-half. We've got like 3 left-footed centre-halves, which is like scaring me a little bit. Really worried about that. But it's that midfield. It's replacing Joao Paulinho. And I know you guys said before I came on, you needed another defensive midfielder. I was saying last year when Paulinho was linked to Bayern Munich, that Liverpool last season, and I said it before the season started, Joao Paulinho going into that Liverpool midfield would have helped him towards the title. Yeah. And I think you guys might have missed a trick. What, do we send him to Bayern Munich for 43 million quid?
I think he just wanted to go there, though.
Proven.
I think the move collapsed last year, but he was pretty much there. Kind of got Conor Gallagher fashion.
He's Premier League proven.
Would have been perfect.
And obviously Casemiro last season lost his legs a little bit, played all right on Saturday. But he doubles the amount of tackles which Casemiro has done over the last 2 seasons.
He's proper. Paulinho, in terms of a partner for Kobbie Mainoo, who's got legs, who's combative, which is why we're going after Manuel Ugarte. It's the same profile, isn't it?
It's all about holding that shape, which he did so well for Fulham. But as soon as you put him in a talented squad like Manchester United, I'm not saying Fulham's players aren't talented.
No, you're right.
It's that stability. It's that stability. What we saw at Manchester United last year, we didn't really know the style of play. High line, high pressing, yet that midfield. There were gaps absolutely everywhere, where I was thinking that Joao Paulinho would have kept that shape for Manchester United.
I think it was the age profile, because I know for a fact that this time last year he was offered a Chelsea and they said he's 28. It doesn't really fit what we're trying to do in terms of staggering the transfer fee over a long period of time in the contract. There's no sell-on value. I think it's probably the same for Manchester United. I'm not backing that strategy because I think you've got to get a nice mix. You can see what Ineos are trying to recruit, but I would have been all in for Paulinho. I think he would have been that transformational signing. I've been crying out for Declan Rice for a number of years, and you look at the difference that he made for Arsenal. But it would worry me as a Fulham fan.
Oh, 100%.
The lightweight midfield, you've got Harrison Reed or Lukic in there, up against Kobbie Mainoo and Casemiro, probably going to hold for United. You've got Mason Mount and Bruno Fernandes running ahead of them. I think that's a real key area that United can exploit this weekend. Good time to play Fulham.
In terms, we hope. Famous last words. Angelina, in terms of our team, and Crookie, I'll come to you straight after that as well. Out of the new signings we've made, okay, Yoro can't, but out, Mazraoui and De Ligt, who should definitely start? Who should be in that side, if not both?
I want to see De Ligt 100%. I think that you want to, you've got these new signings. We want to hit the ground running. We want to see. Obviously, Euro is injured, but I don't see him being somebody who's just going to be kind of sitting back. You don't pay that much money for a defender, especially one that's linked to Real Madrid, just for him to dip in here and there. I think it's going to be a bit of a challenge, a nice challenge maybe who is going to be Man United's, central defensive pair. So let's hit the ground running. Let's get him in there and see what he can do. I think that with the right, I think we were talking about it earlier, I would assume that Delo would probably stay there. But yeah, no, I think De Ligt 100% I would really like to see and I expect to see. He's been signed, he's sat there. Let's get going.
Joshua Zirkzee, hasn't played for us at all yet.
No.
We've got Bruno in the false nine. It was Jadon Sancho throughout pre-season. Are we assuming Bruno Fernandes, in the absence of a striker being available and Zirkzee not playing for us, will probably carry on as a false nine in this game?
I think so. I think for me it's probably 2 changes maximum, but probably only one. De Ligt coming in for Johnny Evans. I'd imagine that Martinez will keep his place at left back because Mazraoui perhaps not up to speed yet. And I'd imagine going forward, you're going to see a similar setup. Bruno in that false number 9, Mason Mount giving licence to roam, and then Mainu and Casemiro in midfield. And then you're looking at Ahmad, Garnacho, Rashford. 2 of those 3 will
Do you think
start.
there's a chance, it would be really harsh if it did happen, do you think there's a chance that he might go back to Garnacho on the right and Ahmad doesn't start this game?
Yeah, potentially I think there is.
I think that would be really disappointing.
I agree.
I think Ahmad deserves this run.
Because of the way he ended last season, the pre-season that he's had, I'm with you. I guess the other option is, and he's done this before, you could play Marcus Rashford through the middle and maybe drop Mason Mount to the bench. But again, having invested so heavily in Mount, they've given him the number 7 shirt. I think they want him to have...
And he's actually fit now.
He's pony, mate.
Who?
Mason Mount.
No.
He's anonymous, mate.
No,
Me and Andrew
he's a
sat
good
there at Wembley
player.
and I was like, I turned to her and I went, do you know I completely forgot existed? Mason Mount.
Do you know what? In terms of... I don't
there's
think
a
he's
good
pony as
player
a
in
player.
there.
Yeah,
There's a good
he's
player
a
in there.
good footballer. In terms of... Now, this is the conundrum with Erik ten Hag because... And the fact he's been brought in. What's the plan? He's never going to play... When everyone's fit, he's never going to play in a 10 instead of Bruno Fernandes. OK, I understand that. We don't have a luxury 6 where you can say we got 2 8s. So you're going to say you don't really want Kobbie Mainoo being that deepest, just sitting there. He's way better than that.
He's got much more to his game than that.
On the left-hand side, we saw him brought on a couple of times last season, scored a couple of goals from there, 1 goal against Brentford sort of thing, come on against Chelsea on the left. Is it just a case that he's going to be a multifunctional player for us, Angelina? And what sort of season do we need from him this year? Where does he fit in?
Again, this is another player where we need a big season. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not. I don't think he went and got injured on purpose.
No, it was a nightmare for him last year, no.
You would like to think that with everything that happened, especially with that Chelsea departure and the way that things went down, he is going to want to prove himself. And
He wants to do well.
yeah,
definitely.
So I really am expecting, again, as a situation of hitting the ground running. He's had time to get over this injury. He's had pre-season. So yeah, I really am expecting big things from him, and I really hope he delivers for us because he's our player. But I hope he delivers for himself as well because I think it's going to be important.
Do you know what? After what you've just said, absolutely scandalous. Taking down a player who, let's be honest, was really important for England at one stage. Chelsea fans.
I didn't rate him at Chelsea.
Chelsea fans,
I didn't rate him at Chelsea.
It's the
I'd
Fulham.
love
I think
it.
it's the Fulham.
I would love it if he scores the winner. If he scores the winner this weekend,
Do you know what? It
don't
probably
come
will
back.
happen because you lot...
No, do come back.
When you lot come to our gaff, what is it? Last 2 times we've
Last minute, mate.
We've taken you right to the wire every time. Garnacho pops up.
Do you get points for that?
Yeah, sorry.
Do you get points?
For the people in the back.
Bruno,
No, you don't.
Paulinho on his backside, bottom corner.
Yeah, brilliant.
You know what I mean?
Cheers. Thank you very
Leno
much.
should have done better.
When you-
Garnacho the year before.
Garnacho just before the World Cup.
Yeah, cheers.
Shades of
guys,
Ronaldo.
Yeah. But there's probably about 12 points we probably could have taken off of you in the last sort of 2 or 3 years. But
It's always tight.
to say Mason Mount is going to
You've beaten Man United 4 times in the last God knows
But it's
how many
different
years.
times, Flex. It's
Different times like what?
Well, we ain't
FA
got-
Cup
we
had
ain't
it
got-
all
we-
in your hands. What, leading 1-0.
Well,
Total
we had
combustion.
Alexander- we had
2 players sent
Alexander
off.
Mitrovic, 2 players sent off, and the manager
And the
sent off as well. I was at my home in Tooting crying. I was crying, mate. I was planning the way to Wembley, going to the pubs and all that, going down Wembley Way with the boys. And then all of a sudden, Sabitzer comes up and scores the winner. I was just like,
Lovely little flick.
wow, it's amazing what football can do, isn't it? It's amazing what football can do.
On a serious note, what fears, what's the biggest fears you got facing Man United the first game of the season? All jokes aside, what are you looking at thinking, that worries me. Yeah, that worries me.
I think it's those wingers. I genuinely do. Marcus Rashford, I said last year, I'm glad he didn't get called up for England. Obviously, something's happened to that bloke because the season before he was unbelievable. If you're playing Marcus Rashford down through the middle, and I mean, Issa Diop, like I mentioned, isn't the most fantastic player on planet Earth. I reckon Calvin Bassey will keep him quite easily. Bench Marcus Rashford, easy. Bench him. That's the best thing. The only two things that happens, those two wingers, and we've got two good, fullbacks and Timothy Castagna and Robinson.
I like Robinson.
And two decent centre-halves.
Castagna's got a yellow card in him, though, hasn't he? If he gets booked early doors, that could be...
I think our whole back line's got a yellow card in him. But disciplinary-wise, it's kind of a benefit of not having Joao Palhinha anymore because he won't be giving away yellow cards. But what scares me most about Fulham, no leaders. There's none of them. Tom Cairney won't start. Captain, because he's
Harrison Reed quietly is
quietly. But what you've got to think about, Crookie, we've lost Tosin, we've lost Ream, we've lost Palhinha, and we've lost Bobby De Cordova-Reid to Leicester this summer as well. And it's like those are four massive players that have been with the club for so long. Palhinha only 2 years, but same time you're going to be able to exploit that midfield. Mason Mount probably will score a 30-yard now.
I can't wait.
You're set it in stone
keep your
now.
phone
It's going to be. I think it's going to be cagey. It's been cagey every single time, but there's always opportunity for goals in this fixture over the last couple of years.
With all that said and done then, let's lock in the predictions for the game. The curtain raiser. I think the Premier League have tried to give us the Arsenal slot, the embarrassing slot where there's an upset there. You know, the Arsenal-Brentford slot. They tried to do it to him again with Palace, I think, after that. But it's now our slot. The world's going to be watching. Everyone's going to be looking in on Man United. The haters are going to be hoping that there's a slip-up and the pressure's on straight away. We're going to make sure that doesn't happen, surely, Crookie, aren't we?
I hope there's a nice early goal and it can be a relatively serene Friday evening.
Comfortable evening at Old Trafford.
I think in reality, both teams will score and United will come out on top 2-1.
Angelina?
I was thinking similar, but you know what? I am going to have faith in our defence. I'm going to have faith in our goalkeeper, even though that can be difficult.
We haven't actually. We need another show now.
I'm going to start the season on a positive note. I'm going to say 2-0 to United.
Harry, haven't
I'll save the best till last, don't we? I'm going to go for Manchester United 2, Fulham 2.
If you predict a draw as a football fan, it means deep down you're going to get beat.
Absolutely.
I think we'll lead the game. I think we'll score the first goal. You mentioned Onana. I think Onana will have a howler because Andreas Pereira, formerly of your parish, will score a 25-yarder. Obviously,
where he should save it.
That'll be the first goal of the game, and it'll finish 2-2. I'm expecting another unbelievable game. I love coming up against Manchester United, especially what happened over the last couple of years as well.
Okay. I'm going to go for a clean sheet, positive, on the front foot. I think De Ligt in the starting lineup. Old Trafford's going to be bouncing. The players are going to respond to that. It's under the lights at Old Trafford. First game of the season. Put all the negativity behind us and start on the right foot. So I'm going to go over 2-0 Manchester United win.
Can I ask as well, at what minute do we think the waterfall is going to start?
Well, it's not going to be raining. It's still summer, so it's fine. It's going to be absolutely
It'll be your
fine.
tears. It'll be raining down.
Guys, thanks for joining us. That's all we've got time for on today's edition of Inside. There was a big thank you to Alex, Crook, Angelina Kelly and resident Fulham fan, Harry Durham. And we will see you on another episode next week. Take care. Until then, bye-bye.